Hey, how's it going? It is the ManFUzed Podcast.
What's up?
I am Kay Lee, audio producer, voice artist. My co-host, Ben H., of course, sitting right next to me.
What's up, guys?
Being glorious as always.
In my glory.
Living
in my glory.
He lives in his glory.
I do my best.
Yes. We want to thank everybody for listening. If you have any thoughts,
100%.
stories, you need advice on anything, you can hit us up at ManFUzed.com and on all social media platforms. We would be honored, and I say honored,
Truly,
to hear from you.
Absolutely.
And thank you to everybody for spending your time with us. We don't take that for granted.
We greatly appreciate it. If you laugh, if you learn something, if you like what you hear, thank you so much, and we would appreciate it if you thought well enough of the information to share it.
Absolutely.
Because ultimately, that's how we want to grow this show. We want organic growth. And thank you to those of you out there listening and those of you who have shared. We really appreciate it.
God bless you.
God
and if
bless.
you don't believe in God, then that's okay too. We still love you because this is a womb of comfort.
That's right.
Okay, we are your womb of comfort.
A safety nest.
Yes, unless you have a name of Eric and you like to be pegged. I mean, you know.
Even still.
Eric, you are welcome here. I'm just joking,
Always.
buddy.
Always.
So check it out. Today's podcast is going to be an unusual one. There have been lots of podcasts on this topic. There have been lots of debate. There is a growing movement that has a belief in this. And while I don't believe, I stay willfully ignorant and uneducated in certain things because I can't be educated in everything. Ben H. brought something to the table the other day.
Well, and I've been getting some requests for this topic.
Okay.
And therefore, I've looked into the topic. Listen, as a military man, as someone who's lived all over the world, as someone who's done a lot of traveling, not only that, my father is big into astronomy. We laid out on the driveway when we were kids and we looked at the stars. And we learned a lot about the planets and the solar system. So that's where my beliefs are based. But the topic of flat Earth seems to be ever popular and growing. And I have to be honest with you, when I started looking into this, although I'm not a believer in that sense, I believe that the Earth is a globe. Nonetheless, there's some pretty interesting thoughts and perspectives on this, and it's quite controversial,
Right.
Obviously.
You and I had an off-mic conversation
Yes.
where you were educating me because I have heard of flat Earth.
Right.
And just from the name, you can kind of guess what it is.
Of course.
But you kind of were giving me some of their points. Now, you're no expert.
No.
I'm no expert in either. I only know what I've been fed to believe. But I am open-minded. And so we are going to have a conversation today
Yes.
with a gentleman who you know.
Daniel was brought over to my house because actually he was in the military as well. And it so happens that we were serving in Iraq at the same time. We didn't know each other. We just 20 years later, he was brought over to my house by one of my wife's friends who thought I would get along well with him. And I got along great with him. Very smart guy. And he is an avid flat Earth believer. He's in all the major circles. He has research. He has data. He is certain of this. Now, although I am not certain of this, I'm far from certain. However, I really enjoyed talking with Daniel. I enjoyed his perspective. He's a super respectful guy.
Well, we will be respectful to him.
And so I'm looking
regardless.
forward to having him on, you know?
Let's wait no longer. When someone tells you something that goes against your beliefs and you have a conversation with them, not a screaming match, but you actually listen, you can tell if someone really believes in what they're saying. People with that belief makes you want to know why they believe with the passion that they do. So this is a womb of comfort. We're not here to argue. I'm here to learn. And at the end of the day, you know what? I mean, we're all learned something.
Absolutely.
I've definitely got some questions. Let's get Daniel on.
Let's get him on the line.
Good morning.
Good morning, Daniel. It is Ben H., And Kay Lee, you're on the ManFUzed Podcast.
What's up, Daniel? How are you, man?
I'm good. Good. How are you?
Do you mind giving us your last name? I was calling you Daniel, but I'm like, Daniel who?
I don't know his last name.
Bland.
Look, I want to thank you for coming on. I called Daniel last week and I proposed this idea to him, and he was like, sure, man, let's do it. So much respect, brother. And Daniel's a fellow Iraqi War Veteran.
Thank you for serving, sir.
Thank you for your service. We were actually there at the same time.
That's crazy. And y'all's paths never crossed.
Not until now.
You didn't paddle your canoe in the same ponds until recently.
Until recently. That's right.
Awesome. So, we were talking about this off mic a few weeks back, and I've heard the word flat earth. When Ben started, kind of throwing some of the beliefs of
the flat earth community,
I was like, okay, that's some pretty interesting stuff. Kind of goes against everything that I've been fed my whole life, but I am pretty open-minded, and I know our government and not everything we're told turns out to be what it is. So we wanted to get you on because Ben H. said that this is something you believed in for quite some time, if not your whole life.
Could you give us, Daniel, a little idea of what the flat earth community is and kind of your perspective on kind of your journey to this understanding?
Yeah. Since we're going down this rabbit hole, I'll take you all the way back. I believed that the earth was a spinning globe most of my life. I'm 43 years old right now. And it was when I was 35 that I first was presented conflicting information from what I had already established was a credible source. But in 2008, I was at a widespread panic concert at Lakewood Amphitheater.
They were just here the other night, I think, at the Fox.
Yeah.
Were you there?
I was not there. I had a bunch of friends there at the Fox at the makeup shows for New Year's, but been to probably 30 to 40 in 5 or 6 different states. But this particular one was in 2008 at Lakewood Amphitheater, and I saw some people in front of me eat mushrooms. I had eaten them a couple of times in college and just kind of laughed and saw a little bit more of the light spectrum.
Nice.
But I walked up to those people and said, can I buy some of those from you? They gave me a handful. I gave them some money. I ate the whole handful.
Good man.
And about 45 minutes later, I basically felt like God threw a slime ball down from heaven right into my face, and I was covered in this slime, and it was almost like I had to claw my way out of it. As I was doing that, my vision started refocusing, and I saw everybody, spiritual aura or energy around everybody in the concert, and there was a lot more red-ored people than blue-ored people, so I got out of there and basically had the first communion of my life. I was raised in church and ate the cracker and grape juice, and nothing really ever happened. In this instance, I had a rebirth experience and had my first communion with God, and it was I was 29 years old, and it was the most fearful experience of my life.
Wow. You said fearful?
Yeah.
Okay.
It started basically off with God's first words that I heard in my head, were, how dare you appear in my divine presence in such a sloppy state of drunkenness.
Damn.
Oh.
It made you want to cower type of a voice, right? And quite a bit of exchange there for a few minutes, but some of the major takeaways was he told me, you think you're so smart, almost everything you think you know is a lie. If I let you leave this situation, you better get to seeking the truth and finding out what's really going on around you.
Shit.
And,
wow.
It's like a come to Jesus meeting.
Literally.
Yeah.
I'd heard the phrase being born again and knowledge of good and evil and fear of the Lord. And I thought I understood them until that night. And I experienced them, and it was a lot more intense than any belief I had ever held about that.
Wow. That's beautiful, man.
That's crazy. And I've heard that, psychedelics, mushrooms, psilocybin, peyote,
ayahuasca.
Yeah, things of that nature, get you in tune. You're not the first person to ever claim that it's changed them or made them see different. So yeah, awesome. Awesome. You got me hooked on your story right now. So continue, please.
It terrified me so much. I had been dating a girl for 6 years at that time, and she showed up to pick me up. She had been out with some of my friends' girlfriends in the area. And when she arrived, my ability to see auras was gone. So I didn't know if she was a red aura or a blue aura. And so I ended up calling my mom. I felt like that was the only person I could trust. in that moment. And she got up an hour south of Atlanta in Griffin, Georgia, drove up there and picked me up.
Wow.
When I got home, I started researching on Google God plus mushrooms, or mushrooms plus God, mushrooms plus rebirth, and found quite a bit of information, surprisingly. One of the best websites I found in 2008 when I was researching the spiritual aspects of mushrooms was AtlanteanConspiracy.com, which is run by an American guy named Eric Dubay. He lives in Thailand, I think, and he's pretty much into like ancient Chinese karate and meditation and all these things like that. But
cool.
I wonder if he does testicle breathing.
I've never heard you talk about that one. But,
it's a thing.
Wow.
I'll send you the episode.
Yeah, it's something that you can really channel some shit. But anyway, sorry, continue.
I had known of Eric Dubay and his website since 2008. And my truth-seeking kind of journey started out with like right after that banker bailout happened. I didn't like the way they were trying to force everything, threatening martial law and all this stuff if we didn't let them pass this emergency bill with immunity and for the authors. And so it just didn't sit right with me. So I sent an email to my whole Yahoo address book. And only one person, I was like, something's not right about this. We're going to obviously lead to some massive inflation, printing this kind of money. And only one person wrote me back and said, if you want to get to the bottom of this, read the book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. And so I was able to find a copy of it online at the time and read it. And it was about how the Federal Reserve System was created at a meeting on Jekyll Island, Georgia. And it really goes into explaining what the Federal Reserve is, how it works, how money is created. Just really eye-opening information in there.
Wow.
And so I started digging in the Federal Reserve, came across something about World Trade Center 7, a third skyscraper that came down in New York City on September 11th, 2001. As been mentioned earlier, we were both veterans. I actually joined the Army 2 months after 9/11 because of 9/11, which ultimately led me to have a RPG fired directly at me. Like, I thought it was the best shot in the world, and it was going to hit me directly. I was already low crawled up behind a hill, and when it came, it was bright and it was loud. Yeah. And it felt like it was about to hit me dead on in the top of my Kevlar when I put my head down. But I put my face in the dirt and started praying. By the grace of God, it just missed me, went just over my head and hit this shoulder of a road. It's like a steep shoulder road. Wow. Behind me, like 10 to 15 meters, blew up. When we got back to the camp, my Buddhist truck mate said, you had a guardian angel on you back there. He was crawling up to my position and had a front row scene to it all. Wow. I said, you don't believe in guardian angels? Because we used to stay up debating religion every night. And he looked at me in the eye and said, I do now.
Wow. Holy
I
shit.
love that.
That sounds like what you just described is like, in my head, is just like a scene of a movie where, that shit is, you think that person's about to just be offed.
And I think
just misses.
From someone who's listening to the story, it almost puts you in kind of that third person shot where you're kind of looking at it happening. You can imagine being him, and then you can imagine zooming out and seeing it fly over his head, and then you can see it hit the thing. But from Daniel's perspective, and I've been there before, so I feel you, brother. There is nothing worse than being shot at.
Yeah, now you've said that.
It just changes your perspective on things, man.
So that happened to you.
Speed up to 2014. When I got home from Iraq, I knew something wasn't right. I just figured it was about oil or about Bush trying to finish some businesses that didn't get done in the first Gulf War. When I learned about World Trade Center 7 while researching the Federal Reserve, my attention got real focused on that because 9/11 was something like the biggest event of my life to date, something that nearly cost me my own life. I had weird feelings about it. I was a victim of a bait and switch tactic. Like I signed up to go cave hunting Bin Laden in Afghanistan. They only sent like 5,000 soldiers over there and sent 100,000 of us that all joined to Iraq.
A lot of people don't realize that there's no reason for the two things to be connected, that being 9/11 and the Iraq War, but they actually were. But there's no reason they should have been, to his point.
So are you saying when Bush was saying that we needed to get over to Saddam Hussein because he has weapons of mass destruction, supposedly, and we went over there.
But if you think about it, it was the 9/11 occurrence
that
which shocked the system.
In order for Bush to push for that, get him out of power now.
Yeah, we were already at war. So if there's another danger, shit, we've just been through 9/11. Let's go knock them out too. I had no idea why I was there. I don't know about you, Daniel.
Yeah, no, I definitely, and I think my whole unit kind of felt the same way that we were.
A lot of us did.
Well, weren't you were told you were looking for weapons of mass destruction, like chemical warfare or something of that nature, that they possessed that somewhere in Iraq, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That was the spin on things anyway.
And then when we got there, we realized there were no weapons of mass destruction. Otherwise, they would have been used upon us. Matter of fact, we thought they were going to be used upon us.
Right, that's what you said in a previous
And then months
episode.
and months went by, and it was like...
No one's using anything. We haven't found anything.
I'm glad they didn't.
When I started coming across World Trade Center 7 and going down into what really happened on 9/11, I became an expert on that subject, invested thousands of hours at minimum, but probably over 10,000 hours investigating every detail of 9/11. I mean, I was getting into SEC 10K and 10Q filings, like the quarterly and annual filings. I was checking boards of directors, like really deep. Started blogging. I had a blog, blandyland.com, which is not up anymore, but the New York real estate scene with Larry Silverstein. Basically what they did is the Twin Towers had been owned by the Port Authority for most of their existence. And then 6 months before 9/11, they get privatized to this guy named Larry Silverstein. First thing he does is double the insurance coverage from what the maximum the Port Authority had ever had them insured from. Then 6 months later, 9/11 happens. Then he sues his insurance company saying it was two separate terrorist attacks, so he should be paid out double.
Wow.
So the guy puts down a couple million and ends up collecting $6.5 billion from insurance and the rights to rebuild. And they had been trying to demolish the Twin Towers previously, but they had been denied because of the asbestos in the buildings. So they knew these buildings had asbestos in them. They knew they wanted them down but couldn't because the Wi-Fi wasn't working in them, just because they were older, maybe thicker construction, whatever. That's the way the schemes run. They privatize the gains in the inner circle of the conspirators and then socialize the losses through citizens and masses paying higher insurance premiums.
That's an interesting way to say it, to privatize the gains and socialize the losses.
It's real deep.
And so, not only was I blogging, I was going to New York, speaking with victims' family members at events, won a golden bullhorn signed by Lou Brudkowski and Cindy Sheehan, who lost his son in Iraq. Gary Franchi, who's kind of a freedom podcast or TV show host. That was going to be the priority of my life's calling, to get justice against the people that pulled off 9/11.
Wow.
Since it almost cost me my life, and God preserved my life to obviously figure it out and try to do something about it. 2014, that summer, we had a death in the family in South Georgia, and just me and my dad were able to go. It's a distant relative, and on the way back, you're talking about some of the plant medicines. I had recently gotten involved with a church that drinks ayahuasca for communion, and so my dad asked me if I would have any interest in stopping by the Indian mounds in Macon on the Mulgy River to see if we could, ask them if they knew anything about what native plants to Georgia that the natives used to use for medical or spiritual purposes.
Yeah.
We stopped by there, and the lady at the desk, she said, I don't really know. Let me call the ranger out. So the ranger comes out, and she directed us to this book they were selling there called The Black Drink, which is different but similar to ayahuasca, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And made from the leaves of the yapu and holly, and they would drink it before tribal meetings, before they made decisions. But it had a purgative effect, vomit out impurities and stuff before entering into those divine realms of consciousness. One thing I remember from that trip, other than her talking about the yapu and holly and the black drink, was she was talking about how the tallest mound was constructed so that it was taller than the trees, so that they could map the rising and setting positions of the sun, moon, and constellations. So they would have perfect view of the horizon.
That's interesting.
And she said, when the Europeans started arriving in the 1600s, the natives believed the earth was shaped like a dinner plate. It had been a long time since we'd gone through this in school, I guess. And just as an adult, I was like, man, that's 400 years ago. And for this astrological tribe that went to all this work to build this earthen mound so that they could study the sky above them and its movements every night, thought that. And later that year in 2014, Eric Dubé, that I had encountered because of his collection on repressed knowledge of mushrooms
Right.
and their spiritual uses, comes out with a video book called 200 Proofs Earth is Not a Spinning Ball.
Right.
Oh, wow.
I listened to some stuff yesterday because
Oh,
I wanted
interesting.
to have a better take on some things.
So I ignored it the first couple of times I thought, but then I was like, I started seeing other people sharing it. It was just like,
It got
my
big.
God, I need to straighten Eric out real quick. This will be an easy one. Like, get him back on track.
So
I
your
finally-
thought was like, this is crazy. I really like this guy. How could he
Right.
possibly think this? I'm going to go through and bust this thing apart.
He's gone full tin
Exactly.
foil.
Right. And so Eric is not really religious or not really vocal too much about like his religious beliefs. Definitely is not like using scripture in his arguments or anything, but his 200 Proofs Earth Not a Spinning Ball was all about math and observable facts, which I was all-state Atlanta Journal place kicker in high school, but my high school math teacher used to go beg my football coaches to let me skip football practice to compete for her on the math team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so math is my gift, and when he was, a lot of his presentation was focused on the math.
A calculator is my gift because I'm not good with
But
math.
I think that's an important point. So when you say that math is your gift, what is your level of understanding of math? Because I have to be honest with you, I'm good at economic math. I'm good at business math. It's something when you put a money sign on it. But when I was in school, geometry, trigonometry,
Physics.
algebra 2, all these things were very confusing to me. I didn't do very well in those courses.
Yeah, I think geometry was my favorite, and trig is just building on that. In geometry, the etymology of the word actually means earth measurement.
Interesting.
Geo is earth and metry is measure. And so that's another common theme in the whole truth about biblical cosmology. And we're known as flat earthers collectively, but I prefer the term motionless earth, right? Because flat is a little bit of a misnomer. Like, it's actually, there's peaks and valleys and hills. And,
Of course.
so it's not.
And it's got
It's not just flat like a countertop.
I was actually thinking about that on the way here to this recording. Was like,
There are obviously vast elevation changes.
correct. And I mean, there's water very deep.
Yeah.
And there's, ground, which we're on, which
Yes.
is like a whole nother, and then there is sky of
Yes.
some sort. So
Yes. There's layers.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Like, you got like airplane, plane, right? Like sea level. The
Right.
word horizon is the root of the word horizontal, which means a perfectly flat
Right.
line. And it just goes on and on. That's just scratching the
So you're
surface.
saying airplane, being the word plane itself, indicates
Flat.
flatness.
The airplane over the plane, yeah.
Right.
And like plain sailing is an ancient form of sailing that is still used by sailors today.
Okay. Can I ask you a question? In my reading up on this subject, there are some variations to what some flat earthers believe, kind of a different genre.
It's not just a consistent view. There are many different views.
There's some altered views. Is that an accurate statement?
I would say that they're basically, you want to break it down into two categories of Bible-believing biblical earthers and people that know the earth's flat but aren't really willing to admit that what that ultimately points to is the creator of it all. And so they act like they don't really believe in the firmament and think that there's more lands on the other side of Antarctica.
Does a flat earther in either genre believe there is space or no? There is no space. What does a flat earther believe is beyond?
You either can't really believe anything NASA or SpaceX is saying is legit, whether it's a glass dome or electromagnetic field. I mean, even NASA astronauts are on recorded interviews stating that they're calling it the Van Allen radiation belts is what NASA's calling them, right? Which we understand to be the firmament. But only the Apollo missions are even claimed to have gone through the Van Allen belts. And so no modern NASA mission goes beyond what they refer to as low Earth orbit.
And that's very interesting because even people, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, Daniel, but the one thing that all flat earthers agree upon is that it's not a globe. Is that correct?
Right.
So there's variations of all of these other different
The main
aspects.
variation I know of is that, some people think that the firmament dome kind of begins on the Antarctic plain,
Right.
beyond the ice wall, some at an unknown distance beyond the ice wall.
Right. It goes on forever, right?
I don't think it goes on forever. And I don't think most flat earthers do. There's one YouTube channel I've heard of called Infinite Plane Society or something like that. Anytime, whether you're talking about 9/11 or any big truth, the government will run a counterintelligence program to try to discredit it, whether that's building up leaders in the movement to collect intel or provide misdirection or whatnot.
To understand, and I know you answered it, or maybe I didn't understand the answer, but do you think that there is anything beyond this Earth, whether it be flat, sphere, anything? So like space. Like I know no one has, in your opinion and your beliefs, no one has reached that point. Do you believe that there is something beyond this?
I believe what the Bible tells me about it, which is that the earth is, on the second day of creation, God created a firmament, which is like a dome above the earth that separated the oceans down here from the heavenly oceans. So above that dome is an ocean. The Bible describes that as a mirror-like glass dome. When we observe stars through a telescope, we see sololuminescence, which is like the light dancing on the bottom of a swimming pool.
Okay.
So that's what light looks like passing through water. That's exactly what we see through, a high-powered telescope or even like a Nikon P900 or P1000 super zoom camera.
And do you believe that those lights are something?
Yeah, they're lights. They're the heavenly luminaries, and they're coming from a light source above the ocean above. Like God's throne is above the ocean on top of the dome. Light, according to the biblical account of creation, light was created on day one.
Right.
But the sun, moon, and stars weren't created until the fourth day of creation, after plants had already been created on day 3.
Climate change, global warming. So all of these things that are happening with the climate change, with these natural disasters,
right.
The rise, the melting of the, ice caps, in Antarctica, shit's melting, glaciers are falling apart, sea levels.
Does that happen every summer, though?
I guess to an extent, I hear shit on the news that's like, it hasn't been this hot since the 50s. But, obviously, it was that hot in the 50s.
Well, the interesting thing to me as well is what a short span of time we're really talking about that we had even recorded weather. And when you look back 100 years or 150 or 200, that's nothing. What about 1,000 years or 2,000? Apparently, at one point in time, the earth was nothing but water.
Right. There was a huge flood.
A guy told me one time, he goes, Ben, we're on the ass end of an ice age.
Right. Is it true that flat earthers don't believe that there were dinosaurs either?
I don't believe in dinosaurs, and I know Eric Dubay, has done some good work on critiquing the dinosaur narrative we grew up believing.
In my head, I am trying to process
it's so massive.
Such an elaborate hoax. That has to be, because one thing I know about people, most of the time, people can't keep secrets. In my opinion, other countries that are against us don't keep secrets. For this to continue on so flawlessly in the level of fabrication, mind-boggling.
It is. I was doing some research as well, and I came across something that I'd love to hear Daniel tell us about, which is Admiral Byrd. Do you know about Admiral Byrd, Daniel?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that story? Because I read through a couple things, but I feel like you may have gone deep into that. Have you?
Maybe certainly deeper than most, but maybe not as deep as you're hoping for. But what I know about Admiral Byrd is he was a senior military officer in the United States military, Navy, and he had multiple polar exploration missions in the 1950s. He went to the Arctic region and he went to the Antarctic region. In the information available on the internet, this is not like flat earthers saying this. This is like his own Wikipedia page.
That's what was interesting to me about it.
That it was mainly Freemasons on the ships when he went to Antarctica. And he was a Freemason, right? And all the Apollo astronauts were Freemasons, which Apollo, according to the Bible, means Satan, right? So why are they naming these deceptive missions after the Father of Lies. I mean,
That's
maybe
wild.
a little more obvious than we think, but
Yeah.
he was on those missions. But they went down to Antarctica on a second mission, and I believe they found the firmament. I have a encyclopedia.
So this guy goes down there on a military expedition. They encounter something because they come back a long time before they were supposed to. And apparently they got in a big firefight and there was UFOs and they found the firmament and all kinds of crazy stuff happened when he went down to Antarctica.
I wonder if he got probed.
Yes,
Maybe.
some of that I think is military misdirection, but what I do believe is that they confirmed the firmament, and then just this is what you can see from following the timeline of events when they came back. They put him on TV and had him say some things kind of weird publicly, and then supposedly even the weirder things were in his diary, right? Like the UFOs and stuff.
Right.
I got
But,
molested
TV,
by an alien.
on a television interview, they had him say that there's a land the size of North America on the other side of Antarctica that hasn't been seen by humans before.
And that's recorded. I mean, he said it.
Yeah, you can actually find a video online of him with a flat Earth map behind him.
Why don't airplanes just fly directly over the South Pole? It seems like it would be a faster trip to get from, say, Australia to Patagonia.
Yeah, they try to explain it away with something called a Great Circle Arc or something like that.
I thought it was
faster.
bad weather. They were saying, like, the inclement weather and the weather change is so drastic and harsh that it would be dangerous. Was
Yeah.
the explanation that I read.
There's a great video on YouTube called "The Planes Prove the Plane," and it's this guy, and he's just on Expedia and other Travelocity and sites like that, trying to fly from like Chile to South Africa or South Africa to New Zealand, like bouncing around from the southernmost countries in each continent, and they all have layovers. Like 99% of them have layovers in the northern hemisphere.
Mm.
So that makes no sense at all, right?
No, it doesn't. Why would you do that?
The official explanation was because most people live in north of the equator, so they have more transfers and whatnot. But my counter to that is, look, my military flight from Colorado Springs to Kuwait City, and then we went on the ground into Iraq from there.
Yeah,
There were no flight changes. It was my unit. Nobody got on or off.
that's right.
Touchdown to refuel. The passenger queue's coming out right there on this one. And I plotted it on both models. Our stop, we left Colorado Springs. We flew way up to Newfoundland, Canada.
Mm.
Now, keep in mind, Kuwait City, our final destination, is further south than Colorado Springs line on the latitude.
Interesting. On the globe model.
Right.
And that's what you're saying, the two different models. There's a globe model and a flat model.
Yeah. You use the same latitude markers, on both models, because it's really, the globe is just a circle kind of folded under itself, right?
Yeah.
So those are a valid way to identify what we're talking about.
So you're
Both
saying that
models.
on the flat model, it was a straight line, the flight that you did.
Yeah,
but on the
my
globe
flight.
model, you went up and then over in a way that
Right.
you went
Yeah,
north
like
and then south in a way that wouldn't make sense militarily. I mean, we all know in our military minds that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Right.
Eric Dubay,
Dubay,
Dubay.
D-U-B-A-Y.
one of his 200, I guess you'd say rebuttals, right? Or 200 proofs. One of his stuff was about the visual evidence, saying that
Yeah.
photographs, for example, from NASA of the Earth is a composite job.
Yeah, and that's actually acknowledged on NASA's website. Under every single image, they admit that it's a composite image.
Well, so from my understanding is because of the photographs not being far back enough, you're going to have to doctor some photos together because you're not going to get a one picture that's going to encompass it all. So a little Photoshop and putting the pieces together is still technically a composite job.
So this is where I kind of go off the rails a little bit because
Are you about to go off on me, Ben?
the question is, no. I mean, this is one of those flat Earth things that baffles me.
Okay.
Because we have the Hubble telescope. I mean, how far away from the Earth is it supposedly?
And we have the James
And
Webb.
why can't they take a picture of the Earth?
Well, they do.
All the pictures that we get from them are of space. There's no, hey, here's the new Hubble picture of the Earth.
You're
Guess what
saying-
launched the same year that the Hubble was launched?
What?
Photoshop. 1991.
I mean, someone tell me if it's not true. Anybody listening out there, if there's an actual photo of Earth, a real photo of Earth taken by, let's say, a telescope, because we know human beings haven't been that far, right, to get one.
So are you saying NASA has not one image? Now, I'm not saying of full Earth, of any section of Earth?
Not any section. I'm talking about, I want to see the ball.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I want to see the whole ball.
My whole point was, if it wasn't far enough away to get the entire Earth, they have to take pictures of sections of it, and then they piece it together. And the image you see at the end of the day is a one complete picture, which the argument, those are composites. But okay,
what I'm saying is that
capture it all.
And you're absolutely right. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you didn't.
But we have things going to Mars.
True.
We have Mars. That's far enough away.
We have a rover.
You can't just turn it around and take a shot of good old home sweet home. It has to be.
Why can't they have a camera in its anus as it's flying away and just
send
shoot
one
backwards?
Up? Why
right?
wouldn't you send one up just to get a great picture of the Earth? I mean, that would be awesome.
These are good questions,
you know
Ben,
what I'm saying?
And good points. I don't have an answer for that.
I don't either, but I mean, I think what he's saying is very interesting from that perspective, because I think you asked the question.
Yeah.
And that is a really interesting thing.
I have another question, and I was thinking about this. I was pondering this. So I am a big fan, and you'll probably chuckle, of ancient aliens. I love ancient aliens.
Who doesn't love ancient aliens, for goodness
I
sakes?
love ancient aliens. The question I ask myself, because we have features built on this planet that go back, I don't know, thousands and thousands of years.
Dude, the pyramids everywhere.
I mean, some
are
of these
insane.
Right. One of the things that rings true to me, Ben and I have talked about this when it comes to UFOs, the possibility that aliens exist on another planet. Up until we even started having this conversation, I believed there are planets, and I still do. Is there life beyond this planet? And you go into these caves, and obviously this is TV, but I believe these pictures that are depicted on walls in a cave of these
like alien creatures
that they are saying had visited them in some capacity, and then thousands of miles across this flat Earth, this globe, whatever it is, there are similar images of the same thing. And at the time, these people, as far as technology goes, you would look at them and go, these people were living in squander.
Yes.
But yet they were able to build things that we still couldn't build today.
Right.
And they're depicting the same type of beings.
And craft,
which how the fuck did they even learn the same skills that far away at a time where we didn't have planes?
That's right.
To cruise across, to share information. There wasn't the internet. So how the fuck are they depicting the same shit? So if that's the case, does that not have you questioning, okay, well, there might be something to, them being visited by a
extraterrestrial.
The pictures weren't Jesus-like. They were like ghouls and goblins, like something foreign, alien, I guess you'd say. So to me, I'm like, well, how could that be?
Yeah.
What explains that?
If dinosaur digs could be set up and manufactured, so could cave drawings, right? And to me, that's like a huge distraction. I mean, I personally think that aliens are demonic entities, right? Which could also explain why you see them with a lot of similarities, right? But as far as the pyramids and how they were so complex we couldn't build them today, I think it's a lot more simple than maybe we realized. That those were built by just with molds, right? And they did them layer by level. They built a layer. One of the oldest forms of construction was mixing clay or dirt to make concrete, basically.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't call it concrete, but they even use the words mortar in the Bible. I mean, I told my mom and dad last Wednesday when I had an aunt move from Tallahassee to Atlanta, we were talking about it, and I said, yeah, they were just molded and built level on top of level. Pour it, and that's how they're so tight. You can't fit a paper in through it. It's not that complicated. Like, we're overthinking things. And then in the Bible reading, like the next day or two, came across a passage saying that, send them in there to stomp on the clay and pour the mortar, fix the molds. Like, technology's been there since the beginning.
I thought they were cut out of solid stone.
I've poured mortar and I've spread mortar, but does mortar weigh as much as actual stone.
Well, you've never weighed those, right?
No, you're right. Absolutely. I have not. I mean, yeah, these are things I can't prove,
Just because we're talking mortar and concrete, like I used to pour driveways and stuff too, right? But obviously we're making it different now than like the Western Americans made the adobe villages, and people in that part made their hardening earthen mixtures,
Have you ever been to the pyramids?
I have not.
Have you been to any of these ancient civilization, things that they've built, Ben, and seen it, touched it with your own hands, eyes?
I have not.
Machu Picchu is probably my
That's where I'd like
to
to go.
I want to go drink ayahuasca at Machu Picchu.
That'd be crazy.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be
so
awesome.
You haven't been either?
No.
Let me ask this, because we're kind of detouring away from the flat earth conversation, but we're getting into things that are relevant to that.
Well, it's almost questioning. Yeah, because...
I got a question for Kaylee. So you said you still believe in planets.
Yeah.
So that means you're still a believer in the heliocentric model of the universe. So my question to you is, you've been looking into this for a while. What have you found as your most concrete, verifiable evidence that the Earth is spinning faster than the speed of sound around an imaginary axis?
Yeah, right. Well, to answer 100% honestly, I have nothing to rebut that. I haven't found anything. This idea is just like you when you had this, epiphany, this vision, and then as you educated yourself and found other things and now you believe to be true. I'm just going on what I've been fed.
Yeah.
Like a good little puppy my whole life.
Yeah.
And so do I have the proof? No. I have no proof that, ultimately I believe that you believe what you're telling me. I haven't done the digging, still trying to wrap my mind around, okay, yeah, I know that flat earthers, like the speed at which our solar system is spinning, at which the earth is spinning, at which the sun is spinning, doesn't make any fucking sense as far as physics go. Is that correct?
Right. Did you know about the Georgia Guidestones?
Yeah, we talked about that on a previous episode. We even rattled off some of the rules.
I believe the reason they blew them up is because the flat earthers are making memes, putting a star map above them and the images. And there was a tiny diagonal hole drilled through the Guidestones through which Polaris has been visible every clear night of the year for the last 43 years.
And that being the case, does that, and pardon my ignorance, does that support the
what
flat
does that
earth?
signify?
Yeah.
You might be able to get away with thinking that could somehow work if Earth was only spinning around an axis.
Mm-hmm.
But now when you factor in two other simultaneous different directions, it's a heliocentric killer.
So the star was visible through the same hole,
right?
Ever since it was constructed, all night long.
Right.
And which it's not supposed to be.
Which means it's sitting still.
Right. Different groups were going out there setting up cameras aligned with the diagonal hole to capture the time lapse of all the stars moving around Polaris, which wasn't moving. And, the sun and moon, they both rise in the east and set in the west. But we're told, the sun's apparent rising and setting is because the Earth is spinning, but the moon actually is orbiting around the Earth, right? Like in a different direction. It shouldn't come as such a shock. It only comes as a shock because we've been told this by the government, NASA, and Hollywood our whole life, right? But if you both perceive the Earth to be motionless, it really shouldn't come as a shock to hear it is. It should still be a shock to hear that it's really spinning at speed you can't even wrap your head around.
It doesn't make sense to me, but I don't have diagrams and things in front of me like, okay, well, if you're this far away and you're this far away, how can you even see that? And how does the light spread, if the sun is that far away? I was doing some reading on this, and I read some articles, and was that one of Eric's theories too? And how light spreads out and how many light years, light days, light minutes?
Mm-hmm. I'd say all legit flat earthers know that the sun is about 3,000 miles above us, as evidenced by the angles of the light radiating from it.
Gotcha.
As evidenced by verifiable measurements like North America, East Coast to West Coast being approximately 3,000 miles. The sun is directly overhead on the East Coast at noon and then directly overhead in California at 3 p.m. our time.
After all these years,
That's interesting, though.
and all these space stations that are supposedly, in space floating
Orbiting.
around, all these satellites. Is that to say that we have no satellites up in space orbiting?
Yeah, not as you think about them. There's high altitude weather balloons that can serve as by definition, they probably qualify as a satellite, but they're not like things blasting through a galaxy far, far away. Like,
Would they be going around in a circle? Like if the moon and the sun were following?
They do move, but they can be controlled even to a degree too. I mean, a lot of the flat earthers have used those high altitude weather balloons to send up cameras 120,000 feet. And that's as high as you can get one up. And
Before hitting the firmament.
Gravity doesn't exist. It's all about density and buoyancy. If you drop a soccer ball through the air, it's going to fall straight to the ground. But if I take that same soccer ball and hold it down beneath the surface of water and let it go, it's going to shoot straight up. The difference is the density of the two things surrounding it, with the water and the air.
That's interesting.
Like a hot air balloon. How do you make a hot air balloon work? Well, you got to heat the air inside the balloon to do what? To make it less dense than the air outside of it.
Interesting. And it rises up like a soccer ball in the water.
We understand this subject. Some people that are really gullible will point to the mathematical theory and say, see, buoyancy has G in there for gravity. But all that is a substitute for a mathematical constant, which is actually max acceleration, 9.8 meters per second through air.
Okay.
Right. That's a constant for acceleration, but gullible people just believe, oh, that means it's gravity. That's gravity.
Interesting.
That was one of them for a long time in my life. I mean, I wanted National Geographic Geography B when I believed Earth was a globe.
Here's a question that I have about the hot air balloon, because I feel all of this could be solved with the technology that we have today. I mean, you can go on Amazon and buy a very powerful telescope for a couple grand. I mean, that's a nice one, right? Even $20,000 telescope. Why don't we take, Daniel, one of these telescopes and put a camera on the back of it and float a balloon up however high it needs to go, let's say in New York, and take a snapshot of the Great Wall of China? Because the way I think about it, if it is a plane or if it is a flat or if it is a disc or whatever the case, then I should be able to, from a certain height and the right level of magnification, zoom in on something that's, say, 5,000 miles away.
If you've got that good enough a remote control for your camera,
yeah,
a good idea. But like for me, I always thought one of the best ways to prove it is, first of all, because of that, we didn't really finish this thought, but Admiral Byrd, the second Antarctic expedition was in the late 1950s. He comes back, says we need to militarize Antarctica and form an international treaty to where the general public's not allowed to go there and do any private exploration. So the Antarctic Treaty was signed around 1959, 1960. The government has, once they did that, I believe what they found was the firmament, right? They've sealed it off. So right now, we're not, as a general public, without government clearance, allowed to go below 60 degrees south. And so you can't even see the ice wall from there.
Mm.
And this is all attributed to preserving the pristine fish near the ice wall or something, right?
Right. The continent of Antarctica.
Yeah,
Got to save the tuna.
Right.
But I think the easiest way to do it is to have multiple ships, right? So in case if one hits an iceberg or whatever, the people on it can be rescued onto another ship. That's the biggest discrepancy, right? Like the circumference of Antarctica on the two models.
Right.
Because on the globe, it's going to be very small, and on the flat Earth model, it's going to be the biggest circumference on the face of the Earth.
Yeah,
right?
period. The shoreline of the Earth, basically.
Right. And so that's the easiest way to prove it is, get a team with clearance to sail that hole and monitor the direction the whole time, right? Because before Admiral Byrd, we had Captain Cook and James Cook and James Ross, two European captains that both did expeditions of the Antarctic shoreline and Southern Oceans, and they logged like 60,000 miles.
That's amazing, dude. I mean, it's such great information. It's going to take a lot to process everything you've just laid out.
If you search Daniel Bland on YouTube, you can find my channel and then click on it. And
Great.
There's an hour-long interview I did for a high school class answering all their questions about Earth.
Oh, beautiful. Well,
That's
we can
awesome.
link up to that. They can click on it and get more information.
Yeah, then that way, if they really want to, get more information, that's a good one to listen to, because you can imagine how inquisitive high school students are.
Oh,
For
yeah.
sure, man.
Yeah. And
They
probably they're
prep for their
smarter than me.
questions
I dropped out of high school. So, Daniel Bland, thank you so much for
Yeah,
your
man.
time, man.
Thank you.
You're a good storyteller, dude.
Maybe we can continue this on another episode, and we'd love to have you back. And
Maybe we can meet at Ben's house, eat
yeah.
some mushrooms, and really go at it.
and we can do that too
He's
sooner
got
than
a
later.
Really nice pool and a
Yeah, he does.
neighbor that's got a nut growing food for the whole community.
That's right, man. That's right.
Man, thank you again for your time, brother.
Thank you, Daniel.
And thank you
God
for your
bless y'all.
service.
Thank you, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There's no doubt in my mind Daniel Bland believes what he believes.
And respect to that.
And respect to that. There are still things, though, I just can't believe. Like,
Yeah.
just the sheer elaborate fabrication, that this lie that has to be held on to by all these
Right.
countries and
Right.
satellites in the sky.
Elon Musk.
I believe there are satellites orbiting in space.
Yeah.
And their whole thing about, okay, yes, Photoshop was created in 91.
Right.
Yeah, well, you know what? When you don't have something that is far back enough to get a image of the Earth, and you have to take sections of it
But I
and
think
then
that's
piece
a
it
big
together.
That's a big point, though, because we do have shit out there. Supposedly, shit is far enough out there where it could just turn the camera around, take a snap
But
of the
do
Earth.
we know for certain there is not one image from far back? I haven't researched that.
I've looked into it and can't find anything
One solid image of
of the Earth.
one side of the Earth, because you're not going to have all sides
Even
of
hey,
it.
with our technology, get us a video of it spinning, going like this, and all the way around the sun, and then put it in fast forward so that we can see the days go by as the Earth spins around the sun. I mean, if we're sending things to Mars, we should be able to take that type of photography, which brings up the point from what they're saying. You can't get out of the firmament. Now, 3,000 miles is a long way. And that's what he said. He said 3,000 miles.
Okay, when we send astronauts to space, right?
Right.
Where are they going for months on end? Are they hanging out at the edge of the firmament?
Well,
Or-
bro, have you seen all those videos where they're doing the astronauts in space and there's like a glass of water sitting there,
Yeah.
which is not possible in space because it'd be
Oh,
floating
no, I
around.
hadn't seen
so
that.
there's a lot of like
a-
stuff out there like that where there's been mess ups.
Like it's a staged actor.
And it is, indeed. And so the International Space Station is 254 miles above Earth. And they're saying that the firmament's like 3,000 miles.
But where are these astronauts going when we watch a shuttle take off? When we watch a shuttle take off, and then there's images of
This
them
is interesting.
crossing out of our atmosphere, right?
Right.
There's images of them. So where are they going?
Dude, this is crazy.
If the firmament wouldn't allow them to leave,
From NASA, this is how you see the space station. Now that looks like a firmament dome on top of a flat CD. It's called the astronomical horizon.
well, yeah, they're showing
look-
half of it, though, basically. And it's like an image. It looks like the globe's cut in half.
Right. Absolutely.
So I don't know, like, is there a reason why you have to show the bottom of that? Because you're only going out the top.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying that looks like a flat Earth model.
Yeah.
You know?
But here again, how deep are some of our oceans? Proven, right?
Very deep.
It's the
I think
deepest
the
part.
Mariana Trench or
Right.
something
Well, how
like
many
that.
miles down is that?
I think it's like 7 miles.
Guess what's holding all that water in? Could be a horizontal. It could be
36,000 feet. So it's 6 miles.
what, down?
The Mariana Trench.
That's 6 miles down, and to get out of our atmosphere in NASA's calculations is what, 6 or 7 miles?
Yeah.
To me, that says globe.
Yeah. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
you got 6 miles.
62 miles
What?
to get out of the atmosphere.
Okay. And the
62
Mariana
miles.
Trench is how many miles down?
6 miles. Nonetheless, I understand your point. I think if we just stuck with, let's just really dig into the Earth thing. Let's sideline the other stuff and let's really dig into this thing, because That's where I kind of shut off. Whereas I think about these things and I go outside and I've spoken with people about this, and I look up in the sky and I wonder to myself if I wonder.
He wonders.
And I just question these things just naturally. I mean, this is just a natural question. If we are blasting through space at millions of miles an hour while we're spinning around the sun, and the sun is blasting through space, and we're by gravity, by following it basically in its tail, why would the stars stay the same? If we were moving that fast, if everything in the universe in the Big Bang Theory, if everything is exploding and blowing away from itself, how possibly would we be able to see the same stars in the same placement year after year after thousands and thousands of years, having the same map of stars? And that's not disputing globe or flat. That's just saying, how is that possible?
Maybe everything's spinning and aligning. Can't explain it because I'm not. Yeah, I can't.
But it doesn't
explain
make sense. I mean, common sense, it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
And so that's just the very basic level, which that's what I do. I break things down to the basic level and I say, does it make sense or not? I'm no mathematician, but that makes no sense.
Is NASA lying to us and telling us the truth about everything? Fuck no. Is our government? Fuck no.
Why can't we have a picture of the Earth?
NASA, what the fuck?
Why are the stars staying in the same place?
NASA, what the fuck?
Why can't I take a picture of the Great Wall from New York?
NASA, again, what the fuck?
Yeah.
These are questions you should answer if you don't want flat earthers to come back and go against your fucking theory.
It seems that it would be so easy
for NASA to go, here, dumbass. Boom.
If we are truly doing the things that they say we are doing, not only would it be easy to quote unquote prove, because if you have to prove something, it indicates that you're hiding something. And so from that perspective, we all grew up with solar system models,
of course,
in our classrooms.
I used to have them in my bedroom.
Why can't we have a live picture video of it? Why can't we get a webcam on a satellite?
Yeah, man, these are
that don't make no damn sense to me. So when I hear these guys talking that kind of shit, I'm like, well, and I'm not saying flat or any shape. Maybe there is no way out of this bubble that we seem to live in.
This flat Earth
or round Earth or whatever shape. Can we get outside of it? Is that possible? Is this the whole universe?
I don't know, Ben.
Because there seems to be a lot of galaxies out there.
Yeah. There sure does.
Like the Milky Way.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Andromeda Galaxy.
Mm-hmm. I
mean, all the mini galaxies that we can see through the telescopes that are apparently out there taking deep space images.
Have you seen some of the James Webb photos?
I like Hubble. Another interesting thing I came upon. The actual James Webb telescope image is like black and white. They have a thing saying, oh, yeah, we doctored it up and put the colors on there that we thought
would be.
It would be. Because the actual telescope, it doesn't look like that. It's all doctored. And it's stated that it's doctored.
I don't know.
None of this shit makes sense.
No. We don't care where you are. This is a kind of a topic that, people feel passionately about on one side or the other. Maybe you don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But if you want to weigh in, please hit us up at ManFUzed.com. I want to end with one thing today, Ben. I have a nutritionist.
Okay.
I've been seeing.
You look great.
Thank you. He's been doing wonders for me. He is a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a tattooed. He's got a fucking septum ring. When you look at him, he's jacked.
My word.
He's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
And I say that in the grandest of ways.
Henry Rollins.
He is no bullshit.
Right.
And all of our talk, I've only spoken with him once, but weekly check-ins with him. And sometimes he'll send me a video. But he's no bullshit with his clients. He doesn't want you fucking calling him at all hours of the night, talking about, oh, you cheated on your fucking diet.
Yeah.
Get over it and move on.
Yeah.
Well, he started doing this thing called the Sunday Sermon, where he kind of jots his thoughts down. I thought it was pretty good. I agreed with it, and I wanted to read it to you. He said in his thoughts today that a man joined his gym a few months ago, and before he signed on, they had a discussion about his goals.
Right.
Dude was in his mid-40s, bad back, needed some work to fix, and he said to me, I want to look like you. And his reply was direct, empathetic, and realistic. I said to him, don't try to look like me. This is the product of 30 years of punishing myself in the gym, along with the genetics I was blessed with. Focus on you, what you can do, and improving a little at a time.
I like that.
He joined, but ended up hurting himself at work a week later and required surgery. That ended his gym membership for the time being. Unfortunate, but such is life.
Right.
He wanted to remind everyone that who reads this to focus in on what you can do with your goals, not what someone else does. My story is not your story.
Right.
And my success, or lack thereof, is not yours.
Right.
When they say comparison is the thief of joy, that is an understatement. Comparison is valuable for competition, but for personal accomplishments, your success is for you.
I like this guy.
Own it, cherish it, nurture it, be proud of it, and for fuck's sake, don't say it's not as good as yours, but I am proud.
Right.
Your identity is not what you do, how you look, your weight on the scale, or anything which isn't an internal view of yourself. I want you all to do an exercise today. On a notepad, who are you? What are you? What do you want yourself to be known by others as? Do you think that matters, and why? Work on them today. If you're stuck on question 1, now is the time to dig in and discover who you are as a person. When I stopped competing completely, it was a moment of anxiety for me. Where do I go from here? How will I train to keep myself maintained and improve my health? These questions, simple to some, were hard for me to answer as I pushed towards certain goals.
Right.
Now my goal has been made simple. To fuck life in the face.
Oh, fuck.
Graphic, yes, but in Ashman speak, which is him,
Ashman.
it resonates with me.
I love that.
Fuck life in the face. I don't
love it.
care if you're in Ukraine, fuck life in the face. If you are in Europe, fuck life in the face.
Absolutely.
If you are in the United States, once again, fuck life in the face.
If you're a male or female or something other than those two things,
fuck life in the face.
I love it.
That is our message for today, and I thank you, Jay Ashman.
Thank you, Mr. Ashman. Can we get the 4 or 5 points again? What were those?
On a notepad,
Yes.
laptop, or actual piece of paper, this exercise will require some deep thought. Who are you?
Okay. That's number 1.
What are you?
Number 2.
What do you want yourself to be known as others by?
3.
Do you think that matters, and why?
4
And
and 5.
I'm not Dr. Seuss with a nursery rhyme here. Yeah, actually, those were just the 3.
Just wanted to restate it because instead of having someone rewind to go hear what that was.
Right.
Hopefully,
That's good.
Yeah.
And then he says, after he says, fuck life in the face, he said he wants to optimize his life in the best possible manner, balancing training via lifting, conditioning, yoga, and meditation, focus less on food and more on enjoying the food.
Yes.
He wants to nurture his hobbies, make friends outside of his career, and experience life more. Life is meant to be lived, and he has sacrificed a lot to live his life through his internal demons. He will never fully purge them, he says, but I will learn to lead their dance. Pretty fucking good.
It's pretty good, man.
Hey, if you want more of that, just go to ManFUzed.com. And thank you so much for listening. Hit us up, man. Have a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
Peace.